Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 work session for the Glenn County Board of Commissioners. I will lead the invocation today, and I'll ask Commissioner Tofferson if he'll lead us in the pledge. If you stand with us, please. Father, we just thank you for the privilege of living and working in this beautiful community. We pray that you would guide our deliberations and the things that we hear and speak of today. Father, may we lift you up and praise your name in all things. And thank you again for your love in your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Everyone face the flag, hand on heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
This afternoon, first on our agenda, we have an update from Alice Keys with 100 miles regarding community updates on Superfund sites. And Commissioner Rafalski brought this forward. He is on a mission this week with his real job and is out of town, so we'll continue forward.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Again, my name is Alice Keyes, and I'm with the, can y'all hear me okay? I'm just too short.
They're saying it's coming through.
Okay, thank you. I'm with the organization 100 Miles. I'm the Vice President of Coastal Conservation. I'm here today to tag team present with some other organizations and individuals about the value of adopting an urging resolution to address some of the Superfund contamination that Glenn County has a legacy of. Thank you, Commissioner Booker, for sponsoring the resolution. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. The groups here today represent a coalition known as Healthy Coastal Neighborhoods. And we are a partnership that began with a health fair back in 2022. It was Community First Planning, Assembly, EJAB, Coastal Community Health, UGA Sea Grant and Marine Extension, Georgia Tech SEER Hub, 100 Miles, and GEC. We offered food, we played games, we had informational booths about environmental health in Glenn County. We also conducted a survey to find out what people knew about environmental health here and what people wanted to know. And overwhelmingly, people really wanted to know how the contaminants that from the industrial sites were affecting their own bodies and their families' bodies. And so local groups were able to enlist the help of the Emory Rollins School of Public Health to help investigate that. And thankfully, we have researchers here today, Dr. Melanie Pearson and Dr. Noah Skowronek from Emory, to talk to you about the result of a pilot study that they conducted that we referred to as the exposure study. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Skowronek to give you an overview. And I think you have a handout with the summary of that.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate it. My name is Noah Skowronek. I'm a faculty member at Emory's Rollins School of Public Health, and we led this study I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but as Alice mentioned, we were invited to conduct this study. We started a few years ago, and it was at the invitation of some of the local residents and organizations you heard about, including Commissioner Booker. And this is what we call a human exposure study. So we enrolled about 100 Glenn County residents, and we compared chemicals in their blood with the levels of chemicals we would expect in the general population of the U.S. So I'm going to take you through some of the results quickly. There's a handout there. If you're looking at that handout, Alice, can you hold up that handout if you have that one? It's on the back. Yes, so on the back of that, there's a table. And we tested for sort of a suite of chemicals, but I'm going to focus on three. One is mercury, one is a class of chemicals called PCBs, and one is toxaphene, which is a pesticide that used to be produced here. So the reason I'm focusing on those three is those are associated with the Superfund sites here in Glenn County. So for mercury, we did not find any evidence that there were elevated exposures in our study participants compared to the U.S. population. But we did find evidence of elevated exposures for PCBs and for toxaphene. So I'll start a little bit about PCBs. This is a class of chemicals. We tested for 7 different types. So you can see they're listed by number there. The 4 lower numbers are PCBs that are not specifically linked to the Superfund sites here. The 3 with the higher numbers are specifically linked to the LCP site. So what you will see is that for those 4 PCBs not linked to the sites, the study participants, the Glenn County residents we enrolled in the study, did not have elevated levels of exposure. But for the other 3, the higher numbered PCBs, the story was very different. The participants did have elevated levels of exposures. So the average exposures to those 3 PCBs linked to the LCP site were higher than the average level we would expect in the general population of the US. And we also had more people who were what we call highly exposed. So these are people who were above the 95th percentile level of exposure in the United States population. So another way to think about that is if more than 5% of our study participants were above that level, that would indicate to us that there's a problem. So what you'll see as you look at the numbers in that most right-hand column on the table is that for those 3 PCBs that are linked to LCP, there were many more than 5% that were what we call highly exposed. And for PCB 206, it's almost 40%. So almost 40% of the study participants were in that category above the 95th percentile threshold of the United States. So for toxaphene, we tested for 2 types of toxaphene. They have numbers as well. And for both of those types, it was very similar to the PCBs in the sense that our study participants had higher average exposure compared to the general population. And there was something like 20 to 25% that were in that very high category. And one thing I just want to emphasize, it's not shown on the sheet there, but within those highly exposed individuals, for both the PCBs and the toxaphene, some of those individuals had really high levels, like several times above the 95th percentile threshold that I've been talking about. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you again for your time. Happy to answer questions now. Happy for any of you to reach out by email, by phone, anytime. And I appreciate it. So
Well, I got a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
These 100 people that you surveyed.
Yes.
You did the test on, were they people that lived in the ARCO area or the general area around the LCP plant?
It
Or were
wa-
these
yeah.
just random sampling throughout the county?
it was something in between that. So we consider it a pilot study. I would not consider it representative of the full county, but they were not only from ARCO. So it was a word of mouth kind of recruitment. Some were in ARCO, but we had people in Blythe Island, we had people in St. Simons, we had people in other neighborhoods within Glenn County.
So you were saying people on St. Simons were registering higher than the people on Blythe Island, or?
I wouldn't say
I'm trying
that
to get
this-
a
yeah.
balance of this.
I would say that we were not specifically trying to find out in this study, we just didn't have the capacity and the resources to look at where exactly how the people were getting exposed. And there are many different ways people can get exposed to these chemicals. It can be potentially from living near the sites, from working at the sites, from eating seafood that may have some of these contaminants inside of them. So in this particular pilot study, we were not looking at how each individual person got their exposures, but we did have people who lived farther from the sites, for example, on in Blythe Island or in St. Simons, that did have levels that were in that very high category. It was not only people that lived right next to the sites.
Were these people, were they lifelong residents of Glenn County?
Everybody in the study was an adult and was resident for at least 10 years and was currently a resident. But the average person in the study, it says on the sheet, I think over 40 years resident in Glenn County. It's on the first page. I forget the exact number, but
We
40
just
plus
got this
years.
information.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, I
45.
can't remember the exact number, but
So-
long-term residents almost exclusively.
So with that span of time and, been over the period that the chemicals were actively produced, would that have been confirmed in the sample?
Some of the people would have been alive and resident when they were actually produced or used. Many of them would be after that. But these are chemicals that can persist for decades in the environment. So we can't tell you from this study whether people were exposed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago.
Were you part of this study? Did you initiate this study? Or
Yes, with other faculty at Emory. I mean, we were asked to do it with
You were boots
the,
on the ground on this?
I was boots on the ground, yes.
And I was actually a participant, and I grew up a block away in Albert Andrews Public Housing from Hercules. My numbers mirror this, everybody else's numbers in the high category. However, I did not live for any length of time near the LCP site, but my numbers were still high.
Were any of these participants former employees of LCP or Georgia Pacific, Brunswick Pulp and Paper?
Very good question. There were a handful. Most were not, but there were a handful. And we have been looking at whether those people are more exposed. And again, we're still undergoing the peer review process, but there are indications that the people who either worked there or lived with someone who worked at one of these plants or sites did have higher levels of exposure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And we have a couple other participants who are here to speak, and Mr. Hal, I'll call him Mr. Hal Hart to talk about his experience as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Hal Hart. I'm 75 years old. I've lived here all my life. In the handout, y'all should have a copy of a chemical analysis that was actually done on me. The Emory, that's correct. The Emory study was very concerned about privacy. They didn't publish any information that was sent to me, but I think it was important for me to share it with you because that's what we come up with. That's me, and I can't. When I got it, I wanted to help out because I wanted to know what in the environment. What are we growing up? I mean, I fished, I water skied, I chased the fog truck like probably most of y'all did. I've done just about everything in Glenn County. I love this place. This is my home. My wish has always been that my kids could grow here. My wish now is that my grandkids can be here. I want my grandkids to be very healthy. And that's why I'm here today to speak about how important I think this is. That study that was done, when it was done, I went back and asked them, what does this mean? How did I pick up plastics? I've never heard of such a thing. And it just got me curious about the plastics that were in. I have read now that plastics, that's everywhere. There's a county, I think, what's the road capital? Dalton, Georgia. They're suing because of they're suing this manufacturer because of the chemicals that they put out in the thing, and it's a thing of plastics. I hold no malice toward the industries here. I mean, I was a kid, I made deliveries there in my family business. I've been to all these plants. They provided people a good living. They provide my friends to live the lifestyle, get educated, and live here if they wanted to. I have no malice toward those industries at all. But we really need to look at this study and figure out what's in this water, what's causing this. That's why I feel it's so important. That's why I came and spoke to you today, to try to get y'all to understand that this study has more questions than it does answers. It's incredible. If you start reading it, particularly the plastics, if you start reading about it, it's amazing. I hope you guys pass this resolution. I hope Emory gets money. They respected my privacy. I wanted y'all to see it. That's why I gave y'all a copy of it, because I don't think there's many copies running around. But I wanted y'all to see it. My name is blocked out, but it is mine. Can I answer any questions? No? Thank you so much. I hope you recognize the study and the resolution.
Thank you so much. When Chairman Rafalski and I first spoke about this, the possibilities resolution that Commissioner Booker and some of the city commissioners and I have been speaking about for a while, he was on his way to a hunting trip. And he said, oh, you are an environmentalist, you probably hate that I'm going hunting. And I chuckled a little bit, and I said, I grew up in the sportsman's paradise in north central Louisiana with all of my family hunting and fishing my whole life. And so we found an area of common interest that we didn't realize that we have. So I bring that up because I think it's important to recognize in a diverse community like we have, we're not always going to agree on everything. But I do hope that cleaning up our town's contaminated sites is something that we all can agree on is very important. The Emory study gives us objective scientific data that is evidence that the contamination from these former plants lives far beyond the operations of those facilities. The toxins that are in Mr. Hart and in the 100 or so other people who donated blood. And I know that this commission wants to help, and I know that you want to help your constituents deal with the contamination and the knowledge of all of this. But honestly, beyond fencing and other institutional controls, there's very little that city and county governments can do for the contamination on Superfund sites. Or to compensate for the loss of the use of the natural resources that are out there, which is why this resolution is so very important. In the packet that you have before you is a summary of the 3 contaminated sites that are addressed in the resolution. It talks about how big they are, gives you it's a layperson summary of where they are, the toxins of concern, the issues that still need to be addressed, and where they are in the remediation process. It's just a quick summary. I'm not going to go through all the details. But the important thing to know is that each site is contaminated, but each site is at a very different stage of remediation and under the authorization of a different agency. So it's extremely complicated. And so the resolution starts with a rundown of the whereases, the knowns in the situation that we're in right now. And then it gets into 4 of the heart of the issue is 4 urging statements. And these are urging, the first one is to urge the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to finalize the remediation plans for the 2 Superfund sites that are not yet cleaned up. That includes the former LCP chloralkali plant, as well as the Terry Creek Hercules plant, the 216 acres east of Highway 17. The second urging is related to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. The Environmental Protection Division oversees the completion of what is known as a corrective action plan. And that was designed to address the benzene that was found underneath the former Pinova plant that was slowly migrating off-site under Highway 17 and onto public resources and onto private property, like Mr. Ron Adams' former property. So the corrective action plan is designed to remedy that known problem. The third urging in the resolution is to urge private and public funding to invest in projects that would allow Dr. Skowronek and his team at Emory to continue to investigate, to continue to help understand better what these contaminants mean to our community. And given the uncertainty of all the federal funding right now, it's very important that we have that private investment in our community. And lastly, the resolution will urge the trustees or the agencies that represent the public interests to file a natural resource damage claim for the impact that PCBs and mercury have had on the public creeks and marshes. Commissioner Sweat and Commissioner Booker were actually at the EPA meeting where we learned that the marsh cleanup of the LCP Superfund site had been finalized. That was huge news. That's over 600 acres of marshland had been remediated. And that set forth a time frame, a 3-year time frame for the trustees to file this natural resource damage claim so that the community can recoup the loss of the use of those natural resources. So in that situation, the trustees are NOAA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Department of Natural Resources. So in summary, the 4 urging areas are basically at no cost to the county, and it really does present a unified voice for Glenn County to those entities that have the authority to really help clean up our community. We have members of the Healthy Coastal Neighborhoods Coalition here with us, and I would love to recognize them and just kind of open it up for questions. If y'all had any questions about the material or any of the study, it's really nice to have the Emory team here with us, but we want to answer any questions y'all might have.
I think just one clarification on the map, like the first one I have is Pinova/DRT.
Yes, sir.
Somehow it's Fancy Bluff Creek is identified. That's Terry
Isn't that
Creek.
funny? No, that's a layperson's, I did a screenshot of the map that Google Earth gave me, and it identified it inappropriately as Fancy Bluff Creek,
Okay.
but that's Dupree and Terry Creek there.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
My question is, if you're through, Commissioner,
yes.
my question is, what is the result if this proposal is approved? What impact would it have on our community or our resources? Is this something that would want to ban fishing or crabbing and things like that in our community because of this proposal?
You want to answer that?
No, it would not. So I'm sorry, Commissioners.
Who are you?
Jazz Watts or Josiah Watts. And I work with 100 Miles, but I also grew up raised here in Glenn County. And I just want to acknowledge too, Commissioner Booker is where all of this really started. He had a relationship with Emory, and it all started from a health fair. And there were just a number of questions that people were asking, and it really is community centered and driven. But no, sir, it wouldn't ban fishing or crabbing in any way. There are a number of remedies that we have, like fishing advisories and things of that nature. But it would not impact that. But it's more about people learning more about what has happened here, acknowledging the history, finding ways to really kind of push these agencies to make sure that they're doing what's needed to be done to clean up the contamination that's here.
And I would add, at the health fair, we had over 150 people come through, and this is what people were wondering. And I pushed the other partners, Emory, UGA, 100 Miles, and others, to have an interactive conversation with people, not just pass out information. And so the ask for this exposure study came from these families.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments?
Well, and I do want to mention one partner that's not here, and that's Dr. Chandler with Coastal Community Health. And his partnership has been critical in really supporting all the folks that participated in the study in regards to, in regards to their health. And so he has been a critical part of this as well. So he's not here, but I just wanted to, acknowledge that we just have a good, broad array of partners in a study that's really driven by the community. And I want to acknowledge also those 100 people that took part in this study, because I think that takes a lot of courage too. So we are hoping that you will adopt this resolution, this urgent resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I got one question. I know we did tests on the folks and everything. Has there been any results from fish, wildlife, birds, anything showing any of these chemicals in any of the trout, redfish? I mean, we're in a fishing capital. Has there been any testing?
Well, there was one study that was in 2015 that was on dolphins in the Sapelo Sound that found, I think, high elevations of PCBs, but I think
What?
Rachel Thompson can answer.
But
Yeah.
also, Commissioner Clark, and I'll get you one. We working with UGA, working with UGA, we put together a local cookbook with the fish advisories, seafood advisories in them. And so, and that's the result of studies on the fish, and it recommends how many you can eat per month. And I'll get you a copy of that. And if you got a family seafood recipe, we'll put you in the next edition.
That's fine. Well, as someone that's ate any kind of thing that's come out of these rivers since I was a child, I think maybe Sammy or Speedy out there may have ate more fish than me, but dolphins are one thing, but I think most of us in here consume the redfish, the trout, the whiting. Those would be the ones I would be most concerned with any future studies and everything. And like I said, we're in a fish capital heaven, so to speak, where with shrimp and oysters, you name it. And, you know, I've ate it for the better part of my 59 years. I think I ate shrimp before I ate baby food. But anyway, I'd be curious to see some numbers on the, you know, the fish, how it's been impacted, the edible ones.
And just to add, my name's Rachel Thompson. I'm with Glen Environmental Coalition. Commissioner Booker is correct. There are advisories and there's information provided by the state of Georgia on the advisories in the area that are based on the seafood sampling that takes place in the area. So.
And I would add that the cookbook idea came from Dr. Kimberly Andrews with UGA Marine Extension Service, and it's to celebrate our culture, not to limit us on fishing or crabbing or any of these things. This is a part of us. This is what we're not going to stop doing that. We just need to do it because of the contamination. We need to do it in a safe manner.
Yeah. And I prefer them with cornmeal.
Well, I grew up fishing too. I mean, born and raised here, family from Sapelo, and that's, you know, that was my life as well. So yeah. Did y'all have any more?
No, sir, I'm good.
I think we're
Thank
good.
you. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming today and updating us on this. We are looking at having this resolution on our, or a form of it, at least on our Thursday night agenda. So, all right, second on our list today is a presentation from Moffitt Nickel regarding the St. Simons Island Gateway options. And we have Mr. Roland Talbot going to introduce that to us
Yes,
today.
sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Resident Talbot, Director of Capital Development. So I'll do introductions and turn it over to Moffitt Nickel, who's prepared a presentation for you all today. So the SPLOST list included two projects, the Gateway project to address traffic improvements for coming on, leaving the island, and then Demery Road traffic and drainage improvements as well. So we combined those two projects. We brought on Moffitt Nickel. The board awarded a contract to them back in December, and they've steadily been working on putting together some concepts and alternatives and ready to move into design phase. So we put together a working group consisted of county staff, county manager, and then the chairman, vice chairman, and district commissioner. So Moffitt Nickel has some presentations, some alternatives to present. The goal of today is to basically have a consensus of the board on which alternative to move forward with, and then Moffitt Nickel will move into the schematic design phase. So I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commission. I'm Ron Osterloh with Moffitt Nickel. This is Pat Smeaton with Moffitt Nickel. We're going to go through a quick slideshow. We also have some videos. I think a couple of you may have seen them. What we're trying to do in this presentation is go over what we've narrowed down to the two best alternatives. So I'll give you a little description about each of the alternatives, and then we'll show you the videos, the traffic simulation of the videos to see, so you can see the effectiveness. So first up, hopefully you might have to squint in a little bit to see this, but the big picture of this is this version is called the 3 roundabout version, for lack of better terms, but it would be essentially improving all 3 of the intersections with the roundabout, and again the goal is to increase the traffic efficiency and to eliminate the congestion and the delays that are happening coming on and off the island. Real quick on the right side, I'll go over the elements we were analyzing on these concepts. The construction cost is in the $10 to $12 million range. The utility cost is around the $300,000 range, and just to let y'all know, there's a lot of care was taken in this. As you may know, there's a pretty heavy duty transmission line that runs on the island, so a lot of this design has been shifted and a couple twists here and there to move to avoid the transmission line. So neither of these impact the transmission line, but there are other distribution lines and some underground and below ground and gas and water and sewer adjustments. At this point, we're still early phase of concept, but we're estimating a little over 2 acres of required right-of-way needed. Some of that is publicly owned land already, but we're in the process of figuring that. Wetland impacts are approximately, as you guys are surely aware, most of the area outside of the roadway corridors is wetlands, so there'll be about 3 acres of wetlands. The last one, MOT, maintenance of traffic, one of the elements we were looking in preparing these alternatives is how hard is it going to be to build them and what impact it's going to take. It's going to have the community and the visitors when these are going to get built. So again, you can see these roundabouts are a little offset from the existing intersections. So we feel these could get built under current traffic and we don't. It will extend some of the time of the construction, but we feel it's constructible. And then the traffic effectiveness. This one is really probably one of the big pictures that we're looking at this and seeing how efficiently it will be. I won't go through all these bullets because we'll touch those when we show you guys the videos. It's a little bit more easy to visualize. And then the last is our total cost. That's we're estimating about 15 to 17 million. One thing to note too, this is for all the improvements. What's not seen on this page and on the other concept is that total cost also includes the improvements of Demery, which is scoped as part of this project as well. And then the last couple bullets here, I think what's important to note here is this concept definitely improves safety and operations. Existing conditions will be right now existing conditions and traffic terms are not really meeting the standards that are needed by the traveling public, but this would improve the existing conditions on opening year. There will be delays in what we're calling the design year, which is right now 2045.
Yeah, it's 20 years out from where we stand.
20 years out from now. And then one of the benefits of this is again, this is the gateway to St. Simons, one of the jewels of Glenn County, and it does give opportunities to add aesthetic elements to this to really make it nice for the traveling public and the residents of the island when they visit. So with that, I'll hop over to, and if y'all have questions while I'm talking, please feel free to ask. This is CFI DLT, continuous flow intersection, displaced left turn. In layman's term, this is a relatively new design development that Georgia has been adopting. They've built a couple that are active right now. I think there's a few more under design in the state of Georgia. But this essentially the biggest movement, if y'all may or may not know around here, the biggest movement is really the folks coming onto the island and going north towards the north part of St. Simons up Sea Island Road. So this displaced left separates that traffic from the cross traffic that's coming on Demery going off the island. We'll show you a video again how that operates. But again, the utility costs, it's not a lot of difference, a little bit more because I believe we'd have to relocate a gas regulator out there. Required right away, you can see the footprint of this is definitely a little bit smaller than the 3 roundabouts, so it's a little bit lower. I'm sorry, I skipped over construction costs. Construction cost is again, looking at the footprint of this, it's a smaller footprint, a lot less pavement, and the construction cost is a little bit lower. Maintenance of traffic, this would be like a regular roadway widening project where you're overlaying existing roads and building offset of the existing pavement and shifting traffic back and forth. So we don't have any concerns about the maintenance of traffic or the constructability of it. Again, the traffic effectiveness, as I just touched on, it really does help the traffic flows eastbound on the causeway, entering the island, and then the Demery Road ones exiting the island. And then the total cost is in the $11 to $13 million range. Some of the same elements, overall elements in there. It does improve safety and operations. Obviously, that's one of our goals of the projects. So the existing conditions will be operating at effective levels of service. And for the design years, the 20-year out window, this does meet anticipated levels of service for the 2045 scenario. There are aspects, as you can see, there's that little green swath up there between where the displaced lefts are. There's an opportunity there for doing some gateway treatment, some landscaping, it is offset there to avoid the transmission tower, but we feel there's a little bit of space there where we can add some landscaping and aesthetics to help make it a gateway as well too. So the last slide here is just kind of a summary of, ranked higher to lower of the two. Again, just because all of them, or one has more reds than another one, doesn't mean it's the right alternative or not. You're looking at which ones are most important to you when you're making this decision of which would be the preferred alternative to move forward with. With that, I'm going to try and quickly scoot over to these videos and.
Do we have hard copies of that? That you just showed that.
I can
analysis?
get you those. Commissioner. They're not in your packet.
Okay. That second slide you showed, it didn't really address the oncoming to the island northbound traffic the way I looked, the way it showed.
So, and hopefully this might help show you a little bit. So these simulations, when we evaluated all through the peak periods. There's a lot of work that Pat and his team have put into this. We did existing traffic counts. We've created this visual. We've created a traffic model, which then spits out a visual model for us. And let's see. We'll look at the this one. So this is the 3 roundabout. And let me kind of explain this to you. I'll let Pat kind of talk about the traffic. But this is when we create these models. There's a lot of elements in there, but this is the existing traffic that's out here. And this would be in the 2045 year, and this is the AM peak. So this is really the highest level of traffic, and as you could see the cars coming onto the island, and the movement coming off Demery. And Pat, maybe you can explain.
Sorry,
what's
I
happening
appreciate
here.
that. So let me.
Pat, you'll need to speak into the mic so our people streaming online
Okay.
can
Can
hear.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, Commission. So just to kind of to look at big picture, the gateway area has essentially 2 streams of traffic. You got people coming on the island, you got people coming off the island. This is the AM peak. We've analyzed the AM, the midday, and the PM peak. The highest traffic volumes and the worst traffic is in the AM. I probably don't have to tell anyone who lives on the island that. And so you've got people coming north up from Kingsway, you got people coming south on Sea Island, and you got people coming west on Damery, and they're all trying to get off the island. And those people have to cross the people coming on the island, which, there's, if you guys have been out there in the morning, there's a extremely heavy flow of traffic coming on the island. So what all of these alternatives try to do is just accommodate that traffic. And as you can see, the furthest left, we could call that the bridge roundabout, the one closest to the causeway. Certainly, you've got traffic coming on the island. These are both multi-lane roundabouts. Obviously, no traffic signals out there. And those folks, they're coming in. The roundabouts are really great things, but roundabouts are very good where you have balanced traffic. You have kind of even traffic from all sides. The one flaw of roundabouts is that if you've got a heavy flow of traffic that gets into the roundabout first, then they block the other entrance points to the roundabout. So as you can see, the one on the left doesn't look that bad. You've got people coming on the island. They're going around the roundabout, and they're going towards the big roundabout. And you got people coming up from Kingsway who are trying to get in that roundabout. And if you guys look, you can probably see it better behind you. You can see that they're experiencing some delay. This is kind of the worst time of the morning. They're having a hard time. Those people coming from the south, coming north up there, they're having a hard time getting into that roundabout because you got so many people coming from the causeway that as they get into the roundabout, they essentially block, and you have to wait for a gap to get into that roundabout. I don't need to tell you all how roundabouts work. I apologize. And then as we go further east, and you see the large roundabout, which is essentially the intersection of Damery and Sea Island, those same people coming on the island, they get in that roundabout first, and unfortunately, they're kind of blocking the folks from Damery coming from the east. Now, the intersection still works much better than it does today, but it essentially provides kind of right-of-way for the people coming on the island, because for both of these roundabouts, they get in the roundabout before anybody else. And so unfortunately, even though this traffic, if we were to show you the existing intersection in 2045, it would just gridlock everywhere. This is still it's significantly better than what you would see if we didn't do anything out there. But there's certainly in the AM, you're going to have periods of time. You can see the folks coming from Damery going westbound trying to get to that big roundabout. they're experiencing some delay. Again, it's not a whole lot of delay, but it's certainly some delay. Again, because you've got these flows of traffic. Those people coming westbound on Damery are having to cross, having to get in the roundabout, while people coming on the island to go north up Sea Island are blocking them. And that's where roundabouts sometimes kind of break down. When you, like I said, when you have one flow of traffic getting into that roundabout first, it can block other flows. And that's why sometimes traffic lights, traffic signals work better, because they actually stop. They have the ability to fully stop one flow of traffic and allow another flow of traffic to go. But again, it's still a very good alternative. Again, you're going to have some delay. The folks coming south from south down Sea Island who want to get off the island, they're able, actually, if you look at them, they're able to get into their own little bypass lane and essentially not getting even involved. This is kind of an updated model from what we might have showed you before. But if you're coming south down Sea Island in the morning and you want to get off the island, you just get in that far right lane, and then you'll be in a separate lane that takes you all the way through both roundabouts, where you don't actually go into the roundabout, and then you'll merge with traffic before you get on the causeway. So it's very efficient for people coming on the island. It's very efficient for people coming down Sea Island who want to get off the island. But again, you're going to have some delay from the folks coming along Damery, coming westbound on Damery, because they're blocked by the folks coming on the island. And you're going to have some delay with the folks coming up from Kingsway, from the south side of the island, because they're also going to get blocked by those people coming on the island. The volume coming on the island is extremely high. I probably don't have to tell you all this, but it can back up more than a half a mile in the morning under the existing condition, backing up several bridges along the causeway. So
Quantified delay.
I'm sorry?
Quantified delay.
So delay is the well, let me explain first of all. When we use the term delay, it defines how long the average car would experience the additional time they would experience at the intersection. If there was no traffic, a car would come in, they would experience no delay, they'd get in the roundabout, they'd go through. When we're talking about the folks, say, on Damery, they probably have to wait an additional 60 seconds to get through the system, whereas if there was no traffic, they wouldn't have to wait 60 seconds. So again, they don't have to wait 5 minutes, they don't have to wait 10 minutes, but it's certainly, they'll have to sit in some queuing, and then they'll get through. So we have not fully quantified all the numbers. The numbers at all these intersections, the average vehicle, when we look at intersections, we look at what is the average vehicle experience. Well, the folks coming on the island, they're experiencing almost no delay. If you look at this, you can see there's no queuing. They're experiencing essentially 0 seconds of delay. They still get through the system, but they're not waiting on traffic ahead of them. The people coming from Damery, they're experiencing some delay. In this case, that's probably about 60 seconds worth of additional delay if there was no traffic.
Isn't it 3 roundabouts there?
So this alternative, and we can show you the other one in a minute, this alternative just doesn't show the one to the south. The one to the south is a single lane roundabout, and it works fine. There's no delay. It just doesn't have the kind of volume that these two did. So we wanted to kind of zoom in so you could see where the real traffic was. And the real traffic, again, is folks coming from south on Sea Island, folks coming west on Damery, and then the folks coming on the island. So we were just kind of highlighting where the heavy traffic was in this model.
And if you had traffic signals to try to handle this, the sequencing of traffic signals is going to be 60 seconds or more. I mean, usually it's about a minute 45 seconds.
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly, in reality, because the people coming on the island experience almost no delay, the average delay people experience is going to be probably lower in this scenario than the one we're about to show you. But the one we're about to show you, the displaced left, does not have those backups on Damery. So the people trying to get off the island in the morning really wouldn't experience that delay like that.
And again, to be clear, when you use the term delay, you're talking about 60 seconds would be for the folks that are queued up at Demery wanting to go through this roundabout at Demery Sea Island Road.
That's right. They would have to wait an additional minute compared to if they left at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when there's no traffic.
Thank you.
And it's still significantly better than what they experience today, because it's a pretty slow backup.
So couple things. Just I've been driving it every day for 12 years, and I see it every day. And I think this option certainly does the trick as far as getting people onto the island. So that's, if you could leave that up for a minute, please.
Oh, sorry. It's still there.
So it does the trick as far as getting people onto the island. I think it helps solve some of the congestion on Kingsway trying to exit the island. My concern with this is just Demery. And so as we know with the roundabouts, just that constant flow of people that are actually coming onto the island and then eventually going north onto Sea Island Road is that backup at Demery. So
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there.
but part of it now is there's a lot of cars that actually are in Demery that go that way because they don't take Kingsway.
That's correct.
Now, this will actually help that because people will now start to have confidence to go down Kingsway. Problem there is some of those cars are not going to want to go straight to that roundabout. They're going to want to take a right and go up to the other roundabout.
Well, we have, believe it or not, we have about 40% of those people going. Traffic will always balance itself out. If people go this way and they've got a long delay, they're going to try the next way. So we got about 40% of those people from Kingsway, and I agree with you. With Kingsway, and we talked to enough people on this, and we looked at the traffic. These volumes coming from Kingsway are actually 50% higher than they would be under existing conditions, even growing into the future, because we know that there's what we call latent demand. Right now, people are avoiding that and they're going to Demery.
Right.
And so we actually increase there'll be a higher demand. If we fix the delay that's there today, more people are going to go that way. So we actually accounted for that.
It still goes back to Demery though. That backup on Demery, it's just going to be difficult for those cars with a constant flow at that roundabout to enter into the roundabout to get off the island. Correct?
That's exactly right. Even though I can quantify delay and say the average vehicle is not experiencing that much delay, the biggest fear we always have when we spend $13-14 million is to build it and then people have to back up, and then it just the general kind of community, if we build something like that and it starts to back up, it can really backfire and it can really look bad.
I think what you might see also is a kind of the effect of what it is now, but just moving up. So some of those cars that are mid-island that come down Demery now will just go to Sea Island Road and come down that way. That might actually solve some of the problem with Demery.
And it could. And so there's this balancing of traffic that could act, yeah.
And
could happen.
I would still argue that the 60-second delay isn't a delay when it comes to a traffic signal. If we do the offset and put a traffic signal there, that backup is going to come because those signals they're going to sequence on a minute and a half to a minute and 3/4 of a minute.
Sure.
So
Sure, the average vehicle is going to have to wait because what a traffic signal does is it allocates right away. And so it allocates the people going onto the island or allocates people going off the island. And so you're exactly correct. It certainly, the average vehicle might experience a little less delay, but as the gentleman mentioned, the folks from, and if you want to run that now, and we can come back to this if you want to run the CFI, the folks coming from Demery, the people leaving the island, are not going to experience the delay they do in the roundabout alternative.
with the offset, is it going to create a delay on the inbound coming through the Sea Island, the Demery to Sea Island?
So it certainly accommodates the volume much better than we do today. It may not accommodate it as well as the roundabout alternative because in reality they essentially have a free flow. You can see right there, the folks. Let me first of all explain what a displaced left does. Is it instead of having people turn left at the main intersection, it displaces them out of the intersection, so they can run at the same time that the throughs are running. And we do this up at Georgia 400 and State Road 53 in Dawsonville. We do it in Snellville. They're very much higher volumes, and they work extremely well. They're very, very efficient intersections for accommodating a heavy left movement, like you can see. And you can see the folks coming from the west coming onto the island. They get if they want to go up Sea Island, they get displaced into that essentially little parallel road there. And then and then we run the other phases, and you can see this is the exact same volume that I just showed you on the other intersection. In fact, it's higher volume because we no longer have the folks going from Kingsway. We don't have them going to the second roundabout. This is all of the volume from that previous model concentrated right here, and you can see that it's very, very efficient at accommodating traffic. These are, like I mentioned, there's two of them that Georgia DOT built up in Atlanta. We've got about 7 or 8 other ones planned. They usually occur on really, really heavy roads. Like we've got heavy traffic out here, but the ones that have been built up in Atlanta have significantly higher volumes, and it accommodates them very, very well. It does certainly, you are correct in that the average person driving through there, you can see the people who want to go up Sea Island in this point right now, they're having to wait to get into their displaced left area. So there's certainly some delay associated with the traffic signal, But what it really does well is it allows enough time for the folks from Demery, again, these are exact same volumes, to more efficiently and not have to queue. They'll have to wait at the light, but they won't have to wait more than one cycle at the light.
So what is the cycle duration?
I think this cycle is about 140.
Okay, so you've been using two terms synonymous. You're saying wait and you're saying delay, and I think the public might interpret those as one's not bad and the other one is bad. I think of delay as perhaps being something I don't want to happen, but if I'm waiting on something, then maybe that's not so bad.
Sure. Well,
but if you have a cycle time that's defined already as 1:40, roughly, in the earlier slide you were suggesting that the delay would be 60 seconds. Those don't jive real well for me to suggest one is superior to the other for flowing traffic. If you're saying here, I think of queuing time or wait time or cycle of the light as 1:40, and then folks on Demery in the last scenario have to queue because of waiting to get into the circle.
That's correct.
And that's 60 seconds. Okay, so there's not a lot of differential there between 1:40 and 60 seconds, about 40 seconds differential. So I don't understand your choice of words when you say one's a delay and one's a wait.
Well, then I misspoke. Delay is the term we use whenever we do traffic analysis. Obviously, with roundabouts, delays are slightly different. We don't have cycle lengths. But again, what a delay is the average time a vehicle using that intersection in any direction, the average of them experiences to get through the intersection.
Okay.
And the roundabout, if we averaged all the vehicles going through that roundabout, it would be a lower delay because we've got a very heavy volume coming on the island, and they experience no delay. No one's blocking them to get in the roundabout and go north. And so efficiently, it actually looks like a more, even though it showed more backup, efficiently it actually shows more overall delay. It shows less delay. I won't use the term wait time, less delay, because one of those movements, again, you got a free flow intersection, somewhat free flow intersection. One of those movements doesn't experience any delay, so it brings the average delay much further down. What this does is it allocates time a little better, and it allows there to be more of a weighted delay for people coming off the islands versus people coming on the island.
Which is safer?
I'm sorry?
Which is safer?
So this is I answered this question to somebody in the county just the other day. The roundabouts, what the data shows from Federal Highway and from Georgia DOT and all of the research boards is that roundabouts generally, and we don't like to use the term safe because it's somewhat of a nebulous term. What we do is we look at how much does it reduce the crash frequency, how often a crash occurs, and how often does it, and what does it do to the crash severity? Severity could be no injury or minor injury all the way up to major injury all the way up to fatality. Roundabouts improve, they reduce the severity and they reduce the frequency better than almost any other intersections. However, this reduces it as well because you no longer have that left turn in the main intersection, which is opposing the through traffic. So you still have less opportunity for head-on or right angle crashes. The beautiful thing about a roundabout is that when you come into the roundabout, there may be fender benders, but you've already slowed traffic down because it's a roundabout. And then the kind of crashes you're never going to get, let's knock on wood, you're never going to get a head-on crash because you've only got people coming into the roundabout. So you'll have angle crashes, but you won't have those T-bone, the side swipes, and or the 90-degree angle ones, and you won't have the head-on accidents. So to answer your question, the roundabouts are probably slightly safer because they reduce the severity of crashes.
Let me ask it another way.
Yeah.
Which one of these would you like your family to travel to?
So that's a bit of a subjective question. In reality, my family understands traffic signals. The beauty of this intersection right here is that they can drive up to the intersection, they can see a traffic light, they know to turn. In fact, the big one up in Snellville, I used to live right around that corner. My kids drove it all the time. They didn't like it at first because it's a little counterintuitive. It's like the diverging diamonds you guys see all over the state. You kind of have to turn before you get to the intersection. But people understand, they see a red light, yellow light, green light, and it's a clear indicator of what traffic should move. Roundabouts, especially multi-lane roundabouts, can be a little confusing. And you guys have a lot of people who've never, coming onto the island, tourists, not so much locals, because they'll get used to it, and they'll get used to it very easily. But the tourists coming onto the island are going to see a multi-lane roundabout, 2 multi-lane roundabouts in a row, and certainly some people just aren't very good at driving through, especially a multi-lane roundabout. If it was my children, I'd rather them drive this intersection, first of all, because if they were coming off the island, they would have less time. The roundabout just has opportunity for confusion when people don't know how to drive it.
Yeah. Question, for the people leaving Demery going to the island, currently they have one stoplight. In this scenario, they'll be stopping twice.
That's correct, but
doesn't-
we're not doing a good job of showing. Generally, when the folks get their green, by the time they get to the next intersection, it'll actually turn green. Even the folks coming on from the causeway, the way we're just not showing you this. If we select an alternative and we select this one, we will refine that model. But the way Georgia DOT operates these is, if you turn left at that first crossover, by the time you get to the next light, it actually goes green. That's why it's called continuous flow. So unfortunately, this is actually not doing a great job of showing exactly how smooth the traffic operations. But there will be occasions where you'll have to go through 2 lights. That's correct.
And the other thing is, we've had an ice storm and we've had a hurricane, and it seems like we're in the bullseye. If the power goes out, how does the police work that?
Yeah, you'd have to have 3. You'd have to have 3 policemen out there. They can't. One person couldn't manage this by themselves. It's certainly confusing. There's certainly, you guys are right in an area where you have a lot of storms. If traffic lights go out, power goes out, it certainly makes it more, even in a all flashing red, it makes it more confusing. There's certainly issues associated with that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
John Gentry, Commissioner Clark, what we would do is design that one with a battery backup or generator backup. In this case, that's what we would like to do with all of our signals throughout the community, is transition them to battery backup.
Yeah, my concern would be until the police get there. So, great if we have the backup there, but if it just goes out and people are trying to move around, it would be very confusing.
That's correct, and that is actually one of the real there's pros and cons of all these. There's the benefits of a roundabout is you don't have any power. If you still have to light it. These are very complicated lights, so you still have to have power for lighting. But people have lights in their cars. You don't have the operating costs, although traffic signals don't really require that much power. But a roundabout, certainly in a storm event, if you lost power and you didn't have the battery backup, the roundabout's probably the safer alternative.
In the displaced left, in peak hours in the morning, in the queue up, how far can that back up?
What we've looked at is the queue will not back up more than, it will not allow, a car will not have to wait more than 1 cycle. They may back up 20 or 30 cars, but it'll clear them every time, so they'll never have to wait more than 1 consecutive cycle.
Which is a minute 40, typically.
Well, the minute 40 is the whole cycle. If they got there at the exact wrong time, they could wait half of that before they get their green, because you're generally going to allocate about half and half. And it may be a 160-second cycle as well. They may, if you were on the side street, there's a scenario where you drive up at the wrong time and you have to wait 140. But on the main street, you'd never have to wait more than half of that.
All right. And you talked about the operating cost of the signalization and the maintenance of it. And that was what I was going to ask. What would you expect in an annual budget to run the signals? You say
I don't even think it would be in the tens of thousands. So a modern signal, we would have mast arms. It would hold it up. Signals handle storms very well these days. The modern signal is an LED light. We don't have incandescent bulbs like we do. LED lights, which are much brighter, they last much longer. They use very little energy. So you're talking a few $1,000s worth of $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 worth of maintenance of power for the year.
All right. One of the other options we talked about on the 3 roundabout option was to not install the one at Kings Way and Sea Island at the same time to delay that cost. But we also talked about, if we're going to do it, try to get it all done. But there's some cost differential there if we should choose to go that way.
Yeah, and the three roundabout alternative could also be done where you don't have the roundabout at the southern end. You could have it like you see here in this alternative, where you simply have, you still have to do some work there, because right now it's a one-way road and it's a very bad merge. Actually, there's two very bad merges, so we need to still fix that, but it certainly wouldn't be as expensive as the third roundabout down there.
All right. I have stated this in our small meetings, but the information that you guys at Moffitt Nickel have brought to us have been very enlightening to me, and I really like the approach that you took on this, whether we choose which alternative. But it's been very informative and very much appreciated on my part.
Well, we appreciate it. It's an exciting project.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments, head scratching? Anything else? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down today and speaking with us on
If
this.
anyone has any questions, you're welcome. Through the staff will give you our contact information, although they can answer most of the questions that we'll answer as well.
All right. Ron, thank you. All right. Item number 3 today is to receive a presentation on the proposed data center ordinances. And, oh, there you are, Ms. Leaf. You were hidden back there. I didn't see.
That's right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Leaf, Planning and Zoning Director. So what we have before you is a proposed ordinance amending our zoning code regarding data centers. So there has been a growing interest in the state of Georgia for data centers and communities, and we don't currently have regulations in our ordinances that would regulate a data center if one were proposed to locate here in Glenn County. And just as part of our requirements for any amendments to the zoning or subdivision ordinance, those amendments do need to be initiated by the Board of Commissioners, Planning Commission, or property owner. So if this is something that the Commission would like to move forward with, then we do ask at the end of this agenda item your direction on if you'd like staff to move forward with noticing this and making those amendments to the code or bringing those forward to the Commission. So just basically what this is, we worked with the County Attorney's Office to draft a proposed ordinance, and that is in your packet today, but that will require meetings in front of the planning commissions and then the Board of Commissioners for the future. So this is just a work session item for today. So we are proposing to add a definition of data center. So this would be a facility dedicated to the housing of telecommunications exchanges or computer or data processing equipment or systems. And then we do have some regulations for standards of what they would be required to meet. So we do have a height no greater than 75 feet, but that does not include water towers, smokestacks, if there's anything like that associated with the data center. We do have larger setbacks than we do in most of our code for 50 feet for a front, side, and rear setback. We have a minimum lot acreage of 50 acres, which is pretty significant, as these tend to be larger sites, so minimum acreage of 50 feet. And then we do have the building, this is minimum lot width, the building line would be 110 feet, which is larger than other areas. And so what we've also done is actually add this as a permitted use in 3 of our zoning districts. So limited industrial, general industrial, and basic industrial. So those would be the 3 zoning districts that a data center could be located.
And Ms. Leaf, have you looked at all the other zoning districts and freeway commercial and highway commercial? We're deeming that wouldn't be suitable upon your recommendation.
Yeah, that is right. We did take a look at that, and that's we just felt the industrial, given the nature of these projects, would be the best suited. So if someone were interested, they could rezone to the industrial. We also have the ability under plan development text, which as we know, a lot of projects will do, that can kind of create your own zoning district for that property.
And we had talked with staff discussion on noise abatement. Are the things set forth here, is it designed to do that, to abate for noise levels and those kind of things that are associated with these?
So really, there wasn't really anything specific to the noise ordinance, and that would be in the code of ordinances if there was any kind of amendments the county would want to make to that. Really, the intent of this, though, that would be a mitigation to noise is the substantial buffer. So having a very large lot size, substantial setbacks from property lines. So just mitigating, just having a distance, for these centers away from adjacent properties would help with that.
And when you, item number 4 there, when it's talking about minimum lot width of 110 feet, I thought these data centers were really very big. So you would just be maintaining your side and rear front setbacks then to mandate that. That would be, if you had, if I'm reading this right, if you had 50-foot side setbacks on both sides, and 110-foot minimum, you could only have a 10-foot wide building. I don't think that's going to go. So
no, that wouldn't cover too many of those. So it'd be, yeah, as you mentioned, the lot width itself wouldn't really be the mitigating factor, but the setbacks of 50 feet and that minimum lot size would be the larger issues that would help with that.
And so why would we put such a small minimum lot width in?
It's hard to determine, as Chairman John Gentry, Assistant County Manager, it's hard to determine the shape of the lot. So obviously, if you had a triangle lot of some sort, but again, going back to the minimum acreage is one of the biggest determining factor. Usually, a minimum of 50 acres is what we're proposing, and this comes from multiple ordinances around the state. Was my understanding, and just having some discussion with potential developers, they're actually looking for 100 acres or more. So that would also minimize the amount of, or the locations that potentially they could go within our community.
All right. And Ms. Leaf, I've obviously cut you off from going down the rest of the list. So.
Oh, no, that's kind of right. Actually, I believe the next slide I will turn it over to Mr. Gentry to present.
Yes, Commissioners, also want to point out we've got from Georgia Power, Diallo Cartwright is here to answer some questions. And our Economic Development Director is also here, Ryan Moore, to answer any questions.
I think he had to leave.
Did he have to leave? If you go to the next slide that you see on the screen, we did do a little digging. Mr. Chairman, you had asked us to provide some additional information. Henry County recently, their Planning Commission has recently approved a data center. They did a pause before it went to the Board of Commissioners because they did not have an ordinance in place. So they're going through the ordinance right process like we are. This is an example here, and I'm going to ask Ms. Leaf if you'll give one of those to each of the board for me. She's passed around a sample site. This is of this particular data center that was approved. It was on a 250-acre site. You can see there's 1,250,000 square feet across 4 buildings, 40-foot wide landscape buffer. During the construction of this particular facility, just gives you an example of the layout. It was 650 construction jobs, 90 full-time jobs were expected after full construction. Had some office space, parking spaces. The build-out, once it was constructed, the value of that, $1.2 billion. Annual estimated tax was $2.7 million. So the one that you see in front of you is actually 2 different size data centers on that particular project. And then you see some parking, or as far as traffic, how much traffic it did bring to that particular area. And then also the solid waste that it provided. For those that are watching online and the community here, this is what the commissioners, we just gave them a handout to be able to see a little bit closer. But it's 2 different facilities that are located on that 250-acre tract. And these were also just some of the elevations that we received from Henry County on what they were presented by the developer of that particular one.
Have you all seen any that are more vertical? I mean, I know you all put a 75 height, and that may be closer to an urban area than these requirements would look for open rural spaces. Have you all seen any that are more urban?
No, sir. In the short period of looking and researching on this, Henry County is the one that popped up as the most recent one that has I guess been presented a data center like this. We have not seen any vertical ones, no, sir. If you look at the last slide that I'll present here and then open up for questions, one of the discussion points was that municipalities do receive a % of sales of power to these data centers and really just a % of power throughout the organization. And Mr. Cartwright could probably answer this a little more. Whenever power, like Georgia Power has supply as a supplier within the city limits of a municipality, a little over 3% of usage revenue goes back to that municipality. And did confirm with the city of Brunswick, the city manager, the city of Brunswick receives about $1.27 million a year. This was from 24, based on current usages throughout the county and the city. If in the case of Georgia Power, if they did not provide power within the city, they still would provide 1.8% of that. So this just gives you some ideas on some numbers, what kind of potential revenue that would be generated from property taxes, potential additional revenue that could come to our city as well. Thinking about through the loss of revenue they've had through the Pinova site since now. But that being said, this is everything that we could pull together regarding some additional information over and above just the ordinance itself. We've got Mr. Cartwright here to be able to answer any questions that you may have, as well as Stephanie or I.
Before Mr. Cartwright comes up, I've heard that there are two types of data centers, and one seems to be more noisy than the other type. I don't know how to identify that, and should we, if we're gonna pass an ordinance, should we identify those two types?
Based on some discussions on these types of data centers, reference the noise itself. So there are different ways of the cooling system, is my understanding. And I am not an expert in this, so I could tap dance a little bit on this, but the technology and the cooling system now is making all of them so basically the same levels of noise. So you don't have a higher level than the other. So they're actually utilizing, if you saw the solid waste numbers, they're utilizing water-cooled systems to quiet the data centers, or I guess the server noise is what we're actually hearing from that. So I could not find any differentiation in that. It's just the key point is the technology from the time when all of these large data centers started up to now has changed tremendously. So they're all much quieter.
All right. Mr. Cartwright.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Diallo Cartwright, area manager here locally for Georgia Power. So data centers new. Obviously, I'm not an expert either, but we see the data centers as a large load customer. So I have a few talking points that I'll just present to you. So data centers are essential facilities in the digital age, providing the infrastructure for data storage, processing, and management across various industries. On January 23rd, 2025, the Georgia PSC approved rules to allow new power usage terms for large load customers, including data centers. The PSC voted unanimously to approve these new rules and changes that allow Georgia Power to charge new large load customers in a manner that will further protect ratepayers from cost shifting. Georgia Power continues to see economic growth. As you all know, we're always voted the #1 utility for economic development in the country. So we want to serve these loads, and we believe that we can deliver the power to the loads. We're seeing tremendous growth, not just as a result of data centers, but you can see nearby us is Hyundai plant. So Georgia Power continues to grow, and we can deliver the power to these data centers. However, these data centers bring about large upfront costs. So all of this, the new ruling by the PSC protects our customers from this shift. And in the future, if we can attract more data centers to the state, the rates should come down for our residential customers. The size of these projects exceed historical trends, and they are also require considerable upfront investment. Georgia Power continues utilizing existing mechanisms like upfront payments for local on-site investment to ensure recovery of all these costs associated with data centers. With that, any questions for me?
What's the closest data center to us? What would be, I know we talked about Henry County. Do we know what the closest one, would it be around Savannah maybe, or do we know?
The closest one to us, but right now that's currently in the queue would be the Henry County one.
Henry, okay.
Yeah, so originally data centers wanted to be inside the middle, mostly the Atlanta area. They really want reliability. They run 24/7, they don't shut down, they don't take St. Patrick's Day off, they're here. This is why we want to serve them. So they're going to be base load, right? They're always going to be on. They're going to be they're going to be a huge customer to us, right? However, they want to be in Georgia. We know this, and we want to serve them. So now they're starting. I know that they're looking at the East Coast. As you all know, I'm not privy to being in the know with those projects until they become an actual project, but I know that they're looking right in our backyard.
And you're saying that we have the capacity in our area to carry these loads without jeopardizing future growth?
Okay, let's talk about large loads. Large loads, including data centers, are essential to economic growth in Georgia. In the digital age, data centers provide the essential infrastructure of data storage, processing, and management across various industries. Recognizing unique challenges posed by these large growths, Georgia Power so improved that, as we were talking about, right? So these growths, most data centers are going to be 100 megawatts or above. So they're going to be a customer, most likely they will be a customer choice project. So what that means is they get to pick who is going to serve them, right? Oftentimes we'll hope that it'll be Georgia Power, but it's going to require tremendous infrastructure growth. All I can say is every job associated with transmission, we are doing everything we can to prepare and plan for data centers coming to our area.
Are there any environmental concerns with building these structures?
Well, we live on an environmentally sensitive state, really. So I think that will be part of the county's due diligence to make sure that they're anywhere they're putting these things. But as far as Georgia Power is concerned, we're going to have to get our generation. We're going to have to build new transmission lines. So we're going to make sure that we're doing everything to be environmentally sound as possible.
And again, let me circle back just a little bit, because if it's a tremendous upgrade to transmission lines that have to come to the area to serve these, that sounds like it could be customer loaded. Existing customers would have to pick up.
Well, the new rules is we're going to require the data centers to pay a lot of these upfront costs, as well as go through a pretty meticulous credit rating. And so so this will not impact our current rates.
All right, and I know you said that a while ago, but I
But
just.
it's good to answer that question.
And the other side is, in the process of bringing one of these data centers online, do you foresee a point where, a new neighborhood going in, might be denied service for a while until something else was completed? Is there gonna be any conflict, in your mind?
In my mind, it would not be, because it will be substations, transmission lines, where those will be like more of the, what we call low voltage, residential customers. But in my mind, I foresee us, with the increase in size, means we're gonna hire a lot more contractors and a lot more staffing up for this growth that we're seeing.
Okay.
Yeah, just from a commissioner's standpoint, if we had a project similar to what one example shared with us, that's going to have a unique substation that serves that entity, a separate transmission line that connects somewhere out in the county that would serve that entity alone. It would be electrically almost invisible to any neighboring use, whether it be a big subdivision or a shopping center or anything else. It'd be negligible. And the way they avoid causing us locally more cost as consumers, as Diallo mentioned, those data centers would pay the upfront cost. And you think about it as, I think of it in terms of an interconnection agreement almost, because they're so large. 100 megawatt user is like a small power plant. And so it would be a significant cost to run a transmission line over to the project.
And I see that and very much in favor of us getting ahead of the game and adopting an ordinance so that when if they are entertaining our area, that we're prepared for the event.
Yeah,
as it would come up.
Yeah, I completely understand getting in front of it, because I think it's coming pretty quickly.
Okay.
A project like this, about the only thing they don't need is rail.
Yeah.
So, if we have a tract of land that's grad ready, that would be a reasonable site for this type of use.
Right.
So all I would say is just go out to the Public Service Commission website, look up the new data center rules, and just understand that the state is growing at a rapid rate.
All right. Thank you, Dion.
Thank you.
All right.
So commissioners, any additional questions on data center for Ms. Leaf or myself?
One question in regards to the landscape buffer. Stephanie, would you describe what that looks like?
So there are certain buffers for industrial zones. I have to kind of refresh my memory, but it's either 40 feet or 60 feet of landscape buffer that we do require for an industrial site that's adjacent to like a residential. So we do have our buffer ordinance, and it's specific to what is existing on the site, or what is the use on the site, and then what is it adjacent to. So whether it's adjacent to commercial or residential or along a roadway as well.
So with the vegetated buffer, would that be trees and shrubs or just tall grass?
So it would be trees and shrubs. There's a mix of trees and shrubs. If it is like under a power line, the Planning Commission has the ability to modify that buffer if there is a site condition that tall trees wouldn't be a good fit for.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything else? All right. Thank you. We'll be bringing this to a future commission meeting for approval.
Yes, sir. So because this is a new ordinance, it would need to go in both the planning commissions and then brought to you after their approval.
All right. Thank you. All right. And our last item for today is a discussion on the amendment to the Glenn County Code of Ordinances, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. We're updating some positions here, and Mr. Gentry, I guess you're going to present on that as well.
Yes, sir. John Gentry again, for those who are listening online, Assistant County Manager. So really this, Commissioners, this is doing a little bit of housekeeping. So it's really going back to 2023. when we reorganized and moved engineering out of community development. We also created a licensing and compliance department. So we're needing to go back and do some cleaning up. This past fall, we established out of the community development department, we established 2 new departments in the planning and zoning department, as well as building inspections and permitting. So from that, there's some language within our 3 different ordinances, our planning and zoning ordinance, our subdivision ordinance, and also our code of ordinances. In essence, and I'll summarize that for you, is what we want to do is we're deleting all references to community development director and director of community development, and we're replacing such reference with planning and zoning director respectively, county engineer, chief building official, or licensing and compliance as designated throughout these various ordinances. So really it's just doing some housekeeping to make sure that those that are responsible for doing the administrative functions of the county are designated within the respective ordinances. And we'll work with the county attorney's office to create this. So Mr. Mumford, if I summarized that pretty well, let me know, or if you need to add to what I just discussed. And again, commissioners, what we would do, because these are ordinance changes, we'll notice these and go to each of the planning commissions to get their feedback and present that to them, and then we'll bring that to you as well once this is approved by each of the respective planning commissions for your consideration.
Do you have a timeline on that?
Yes, sir. So we'll notice right away. And Ms. Leaf, so our intent is to try to get these in it'll be in the April timeframe. So we should be able to bring them to you at the April meeting. Probably the first week of May for y'all.
John, just to clarify though on the position, so the Stephanie and Dave were in those positions, so there weren't new department head created, right? So we didn't create new positions. Those were positions essentially that were there.
Yes,
And so we kind of flattened that organization a little bit. You've kind of stepped down and taken on more responsibility over those 2 departments as well. So I don't want to give the impression that we created 2 new departments. Those were there in place, reporting to the community development director. That position has been repurposed into an additional planning, a lower level planning position, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. So we basically just took 2 divisions, we reduced a department head and created a new planner. So we're in the process of hiring a new planner that starts in, I think, 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to having her on board. And it was just established a responsible person in the building official and the planning and zoning director. And I still have, Mr. Fallon still has responsibilities, designated responsibilities for approving authorities over and recommendations, for example, a site plan extension.
Who are in these positions now with the new titles?
Yes, sir. Ms. Leaf is the planning and zoning director. Mr. Dave Carver is building inspections and permitting director. Christy Kinstall is the licensing and permitting, and then our county engineer, Jason Hartman.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments? All right, Mr. Attorney, no need for executive session today. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you all for being here today, and we are done.